Jacques Derrida, the 20th century French philosopher, was an anti-Cartesian who followed the German philosophers such as Martin Heidegger. He was greatly influenced by Saussure, a 20th century Swiss linguist, who was a holist about semantics. Saussure maintained that meaning did not lie in single words or sentences, but language as a whole, as did W.V. Quine. Popkin states that Derrida was a radical skeptic. Derrida found that any text can be interpreted in more than one way. He maintained there is no such thing as an objective or true interpretation of any text. Popkin maintains that Derrida believed man was the measure of all things. That stance would make his thinking similar to Pyrrho. There have been many critiques of skepticism, but for our purposes, the most important one is the caution that moral skepticism can lead to moral relativism, which is not a robust position to defend. Our next lecture on atheist ethics and systems will take up the topic of relativism and its critics. Skepticism in recent years has taken two distinct paths. Skepticism in academia is involved with abstract thinking about knowledge and its related inquiries of knowledge origins and similar concerns. This pursuit is often viewed as arcane and irrelevant by non-professionals. The second direction of skepticism is a populist one, which has had some popularity and interest. Contemporary skepticism applies critical thinking to fads, follies, and frauds that take people in. These frauds and present-day myths might be scientific, medical, psychological, social, and so on. The contemporary skeptical movement has now spread all over the world. There are several important organizations in the United States for the promotion of skepticism. They are the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, CSI, the Skeptics Society, and the James Randi Educational Foundation. Michael Shermer is the co-founder of the Skeptics Society and a well-known author and lecturer. The Skeptics Society publishes Skeptic Magazine. Shermer is a force for applying scientific methods and naturalistic explanations for what are described as supernatural events. The Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, SYSCOP, and its Skeptical Inquirer Journal have attempted to apply scientific methods to uncover the truth claims of paranormal events. The Committee for the Scientific Examination of Religion, founded by the Council for Secular Humanism and its journal Free Inquiry, now operates under the auspices of the Center for Inquiry. This organization investigates such areas as religious claims and biblical inaccuracies and applies scientific and other inquiries into claims of prayer, faith healing, and so on. Carl Sagan, the 20th century astronomer and author, spent many years promoting science and skepticism. The term scientific skepticism may have originated with him. Our brief glance at the history of skepticism and its present-day strength and growth is very encouraging. The media pick up the absurd claims of faith healers, of miracles and fads that bilk people of their money and time. They encourage sloppy thinking and irrational belief systems in the credulous. The work of contemporary skeptics is very valuable. They have taken doubt out of the academy and put it in the world of every day, where the voices of hucksters, charlatans, and cranks threaten to drown out the light of reason. Two atheist philosophers, Feuerbach and Schopenhauer. The preface will make a brief mention of two important atheist philosophers. They did not belong to a particular school and stand on their own, although their influence on other philosophers was significant. Ludwig Feuerbach, 1804 to 1872. Feuerbach was infamous in his time for his attack on Christianity in The Essence of Christianity, 1837, and his lectures on the essence of religion, 1848. In Essence of Christianity, he argued that the beliefs of the Christian faith are anthropology turned into religion. He maintained that unconscious processes try to overcome contradictory elements within the self by projection. All the unrealized projection of ourselves into an imaginary, non-human God resolves our difficulty with the daunting task of improving ourselves and other human beings. Essence of religion took a slightly new direction. Feuerbach added to his original theory by stating that religions are also based on a desire of people to exceed the limits of life which are based in nature. That is why people believe in miraculous concepts and a God independent of limits. Feuerbach was very influential in the 19th century as an interesting philosophy for readers of atheistic literature. Feuerbach was an important influence on Marx. Socialism and communism are not in the purview of this philosophy section. For an excellent short discussion on why atheism is not connected to the errors of communism, see Julian Baggini's Atheism, a very short introduction. Arthur Schopenhauer, 1788 to 1860. Schopenhauer was an atheist who was influenced by Buddhist and Indian philosophy. He believed in the reality of the world, but thought that people's view of it was illusory. His philosophy is contained in his magnum opus, The World as Will and Representation, 1818. He maintained that behind the world and managing it was a force he called the will. The will drove people in all of nature to mate, breed, and die. People attempt to maintain the illusion that their life has meaning, but their movement from one desire to another is the basis of their motivation. The way out of this unsatisfactory state of being is either through art, aesthetic pleasure, contemplation, or ascetic self-denial. Schopenhauer's critiques of Christianity are robust. He states that whoever seriously believes that supernatural beings have ever informed the human race of the aim of its existence and of the world is still in his childhood. He holds that all religions arise from the desire to explain the world. He finds one of the worst things about all religions to be the fact that they are unwilling, probably unable, to confess what he calls their allegorical nature, that they are forced to conceal it. And so they put forth their doctrine in all seriousness. However, as the essential parts of these doctrines are based on absurdities, there comes about a condition of continual fraud. Schopenhauer was far ahead of his time into his insight into another crucial ethical era of Christianity. He read Eastern philosophy and was very influenced by it. He explored the unnatural distinction Christianity makes between man and the animal world. He explains that man really belongs to the animal world and is not separate from it. Schopenhauer goes on to explain that Christianity sets up man as all-important and looks upon animals as merely things. He continues that Christianity contains a great and essential imperfection by limiting its precepts to humans and refusing rights to the animal world. He compassionately discusses the cruel manner with which animals are treated by Christian societies. He laments that they are killed for no reason or object and laughed about, mutilated, and tortured. He believes such things are the effects of the first chapter of Genesis, and in fact of the whole Judeo-Christian conception of nature. We shall be discussing the biblical license for man to mistreat animals in our next lecture on atheist ethics. Schopenhauer combined deep insights into the human condition with a consummate literary talent. He is a philosopher almost alone since Locke in his influence on great writers and thinkers. The list of his influence is long. Tolstoy and Turgenev, one a theist, the other an atheist. Proust and Zola, Thomas Mann, Hardy, Conrad, Maupassant, Chekhov, Malm, and Borges. Karl Popper, the philosopher, was influenced by him. Nietzsche said it was the reading of Schopenhauer that turned him into a philosopher. And even the great 20th century Wittgenstein began his philosophizing from a starting point provided by Schopenhauer. Thank you for your attention this evening. This lecture concludes Atheist Philosophies. We covered some of my favorite philosophers and thinking, and I hope you had as good a time as I.